Hi, folks. This is Rick Doc Walker, the DOC.
This is John Kime, and you're listening to the Mess Hall with Rally Captain and Tailgate Ted.
What's going on, Rally? Happy first day of the 2024 season, man.
Is that today? Of course it's today. I'm not fooling anybody. I've had goosebumps all day listening to what everyone's talking about, and I, for one, cannot wait until Sunday morning to see our fellas draped in the burgundy and gold. I know they may not be doing much, but the mere fact that we're back at the park to kick this thing off with the fans, I can't wait. What about you, bro?
I'm excited, man. I got up this morning and I saw Smoot and Tana and Logan Paulson broadcasting from training camp. They had a little like YouTube live feed going on there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie, I got excited. I was also bummed because we're not out there. We were out there for the first day of training camp last year. I was pretty much out there for every day of training camp last year. And as it's looking now, I don't think I'm going to get to any of training camp this year. So it'll be, it's frustrating to see, but I do appreciate Fred and Tana and Logan. And the team was actually doing a great job videoing it and providing it back to the fans. So that was awesome. I do wish they had more cameras. I wish they had more feeds because I like watching the big uglies. I like watching the linemen go at it. And, they only had one feed where it was pretty much on Jaden a majority of the time, and rightfully so. That's where the bread's being buttered. That's what everyone wants to see. But personally, I want to see more than that. So if they had like a different feed where, okay, this camera's watching linebacker practice, and this one's watching offensive linemen. This one's watching the D tackles. And maybe they'll do that later on as it gets further. I'm not going to hold my breath. But like you and everyone listening or watching this podcast, goosebumps, man. Goosebumps.
Yeah, we're back, dude. We are back. And I can't wait. And you'll probably get tired of me saying it. And our listeners will probably get tired of me saying I can't wait. But I can't. And that's just how I feel right now, and no one can take that joy away from me.
I hear you, man. Something else I'm actually looking forward to, and this might just be me. So the Olympics actually had its first event today. It's Wednesday right now that Rally and I are recording this at 3:00. I think the opening ceremonies are this Friday. Are you excited at all for the Olympics?
I am. Normally, I don't kind of get up for certain activities, but I'm looking forward to this Olympics. I'm looking forward to the opening ceremony. I'm going to actually record it and just see what that's about, because that's always a showstopper. I think about when they had it overseas, and I think it was it Korea, China, or something like that, where they had just maybe Japan. I don't remember where it was, but they had the people playing the instruments and all the drums and the dancing, and just it was just a masterpiece of how they put everybody together, and how coordinated they were dancing. So forgive my memory, but that was just an awesome thing to see. So what about you, man? Are you looking forward to seeing any particular events, or you just like the Olympics period?
No, definitely particular events. I mean, maybe just because I just got done binging Cobra Kai on Netflix, but I'm looking forward to watching the Taekwondo and the Judo.
Really?
And yeah, I always found that stuff kind of interesting. They don't have pickleball in the Olympics yet, so fingers crossed down the road. But until then, watching those, and then surfing, just because hanging out at the beach, trying to see what those guys are doing out there. That's always fun. I mean, it's the Summer Olympics, so the stuff that's very unique to the summer. Obviously, we just got done with a ton of soccer here in the U.S., so to get a chance to see the women's soccer team and what they're going to do. One, I'm kind of surprised that's in there. Did you see they put breakdancing in the Olympics?
Yeah, I saw that, and that's going to be a struggle for me to watch if I decide to watch it. Which I probably will not watch it, But one thing that I will say is, being that is our era growing up, breakdancing. Just wondering how much more can they actually do than what's been done. So I mean, you've got your different type of windmills, your pop lock, and I mean head spins. So it's going to be interesting to see just how they put it together. So there's a part of me that will watch a little bit of it, but then I'll get bored because I can't do it. But I tell
Oh
you
yeah.
what, I'm really looking forward to the 100-meter dashes, the 200-meter dash, the 440 relays. The track and field is what I'm definitely looking forward to.
Yeah, see, that's the stuff that I can't do. I don't run, so it's like, all right, that's for anybody else. But I am the thing was I think Snoop is going to be a commentary or chiming in from time to time. It was a couple
Oh,
of years ago where he was talking about that horse doing a crip walk. So I just feel like stuff like that is going to be kind of fun and seeing him react to the break dancing and things if he's going to be on there. But one thing I was surprised to see, and I might be one of the only ones, I was surprised to see Jason Wright stepping down as team president. So it happened last Wednesday after we got done recording. And part
yeah.
of me wanted to call you up, say, hey, scratch that past hour. We got to talk about this. But realistically, not that I don't care, but I'm more concerned about the football side of things than all of that stuff now, other than the fact that I consider Jason a friend and got to know him very well over the past 4 years. Were you shocked when you saw the announcement come out?
I actually was. And I still am surprised. But like anything else in life, you're only here for a minute, man, and you can't expect to have it your way every time. I mean, I think about, like you said, I got to meet him. We talked offline, online, all around the line, if you will, and all around good guy. And but he inherited a soup sandwich, and it really hurt me to see him go, or to see him leave after this year. Uh, he made some mistakes, but who in life hasn't? And I think that those mistakes kind of took him to the end of his tenure here. Um, One of the things that kind of surprised me is when I heard that he was had applied for Green Bay and he got turned down. So when I heard that, I, I thought, wow, okay. And then I really didn't think much of it, but it was always in the back of my mind saying, why is he trying to go to Green Bay, or what's going on at Green Bay? So the birds started chirping then, but I just didn't put it together. I mean, when you heard about him going to Green Bay, what do you think?
I'm thinking they're giving him an option to look around. They're giving him a chance to interview for other opportunities that might be out there, knowing he wasn't going to be here because
Hmm.
it's officially been 1 year since the Harris Group took over.
Yeah.
And they gave people enough time to live out their contracts or gave them enough leeway to prove that they qualified to get a long-term job here or didn't. And with that being said, it's been a year and we haven't heard from Jason as much as we did prior to the Harris Group taking over. He was the face of this team, like it or not, for some people. And yeah, there were some mistakes. There definitely were some mistakes. You can't get past that. There's no defending some of that stuff. And I feel that he
Hmm.
hired some of the wrong people. He got thrown into a bad situation. And
Yeah.
he had his hands tied behind his back because ownership, I know for a fact, didn't want to invest money in different things that he wanted to invest in and others wanted to invest in. So it just wasn't fair. I also thank him for the job he did because I know it could have been and would have been a hell of a lot worse if someone else was in his shoes over this past couple of years. And he
Yeah.
steered us out of a just murky water, if you will. And I've got no doubt he's going to land on his feet and be in a good spot. And I'm glad to see that we're going to get a chance to still see him this year. I mean, I reached out to him the second I heard the announcement just to thank him for everything he's done. So I'm looking forward to seeing what still happens and looking forward to seeing him at the stadium and wish him all the best. And you got people piling on and saying this and that. I think that their animosity is misguided. I think a lot of that stuff should be towards Snyder, whether it's Dan or Tanya, and people should understand that he was an employee of the past owners and he can only do so much.
Right.
And you just kind of go from there. But I'm happy for wherever he lands next. And it's going to be interesting to see who they fill that spot with and what it's going to be like. I'm not going to lie. I'm worried about building a relationship with that individual and how all of that's going to go. And
starting all over again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we just went through this with the new owners, and now here we are going through it with Jason. But one thing I'll say though, Ted, is he graduated Gladiator School working with the organization. So wherever he goes, it should be a lot easier because they threw him into the ring, man. So he graduated. So and all honesty, I give him a B, man. I give him a B. I know a lot of people will probably say that's too high, but I give him a B, and I think that's what he deserves. I can't give him an A because of the mistakes that he made, but he did a lot of extra credit in my eyes to bring that score up to a B.
He brought a lot of the fan base together in a difficult time with 3 names and all of this stuff. And you're going to have your hardcore fans that are never going to give him more than an F just because they see him as the guy that stuck us with the Commander's name. And that's just not 100% the truth. It was not Jason unilaterally saying this is going to be the name. There is a reason we went this way. The past ownership did not want to invest money in a potential legal battle to get a more popular name like Red Wolves. And you can only do what your boss allows you to do, right? There's just only so much within your power at a certain point. You know, the dates being wrong on the crest, hey, that's a bad blow, and that's definitely under his regime. And I don't know if that's what his legacy is going to be, or there's going to be some spots that aren't so bright, some spots that are. And all I know is I wish him the best moving on.
Definitely.
We got a new year, and you know what, man? I hope for our fan base's sake that we don't know the name of our next team president, that it just does not come up and does not matter to us anymore, other than maybe you and me for stuff that we do behind the scenes. But your average Joe Blow fan should not know who the next Jason Wright is for this team, because everything is working and we don't need that public facing person to be out there.
Well, you know as well as I do that once that name is announced, that it's going to be a big whoop-de-doo. And so question I have is, do you think they're actively looking for one right now, or they just are allowing things to kind of just fade away, if you will?
I think they've been looking for someone for months. I think that they knew that Jason wasn't going to be the person to hold on to this role long term, and they've been looking for some time. And it would not surprise me if sometime during the season, if not maybe a little bit before, it got announced as to who the new team president's going to be. But until then, Jason has stepped down and he's got a senior advisory role. I didn't actually look up the exact title, but he's no longer team president. They're letting him finish out the 2024-2025 season, and maybe he'll find something sooner in the meantime, like that Green Bay job that he interviewed for, and then he'll just ride off in the sunset and go to that next thing and not live out the rest of his term. But regardless, we're in a better place than we were a year ago with the ownership group, with Dan Quinn, with Adam Peters, and we're on the right track to get this thing started. And I mean, you can't really get past day one without the first day of training camp, and that was today. And Dan Quinn, Adam Peters had a press conference yesterday. DQ had one today. We got a couple of clips, got those cut up for you guys. Are you surprised about DQ, basically lack of stance about Jaden not being number one?
Not really. And I say that because I think that they're looking at everything that goes along with being named number one. And I don't think that right now they want those extra added pressures on him. So basically, we know, providing that he just goes out here and just throws dirt balls every time he passes the ball, we know that he's the number one guy. But you just don't want him to be I don't think right now in front of the camera as much as the number one guy has to be. Right now, as long as you're kind of up in the air with it, his camera time can be limited. And all you want the kid to do is, or young man, excuse me, all you want the young man to do is just continue to grasp the offense, continue learning. It's a part of the job, but right now you don't want him to have to answer all the questions. And everybody thinks about the whole Robert Griffin comparison and everything. And I think that that's one of the things that may have with Robert. He was always in front of the camera. He was named the number one, the starter. So this is obviously a different organization, a different time, different regime, and they're gonna just play it the way that they feel is best. These guys have been around the block a lot of times. They know the right things to say. They know what to do, how to do it, and we're actually seeing it in real time in front of our faces right now. So you don't have to name them, but we know, if that makes sense.
No, makes sense to me. This is actually what DQ had to say about it.
And what is the plan for Jaden as far as working with, how you talk about competition? What's that going to look like? Is he going to rotate? Is he going to work with the ones? How is that going to look?
Yeah, and I that's a good question, John, because it's probably leading to Jaden starting and when is that happening. So this is a great time to discuss it. And I want you to know it's not a secret, but it is a journey and a process. And so as we're going, when he's ready, we'll know. And when he's ready, he'll also know. But as far as the reps go, obviously with him and Marcus and moving around, there'll be certain days that will feature more of another. But I guess I'm glad that you brought it up, and certainly not a secret. It's a journey and a process. And so through practices, through scrimmages and preseason games, all the way down, that's where the journey will take us. And then I'm not trying to hold back the info, but when we know, we'll say it.
For me, all I care about is who's getting first team reps.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Jaden? Is it Marcus? If Jaden's getting a majority of those first team reps, he's working with that first team O-line, he's working with his first team receivers, then to me, he's QB1. Might not be official on the depth chart, but we all know what happens when you're the guy that's getting those reps. And eventually, if and when he does get named QB1, then great. But I don't care that today, on day one, that they haven't named it. He is the number 2 pick in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Former Heisman Trophy winner. We all know who Marcus Mariota is. He's been in this league long enough. To me, he's the guy that walked out on his team. Whether that's fair to him or not, he's the guy that walked out on his team when he got benched.
That's what he's known for.
That is his brand.
Yeah, that's one of the things he's known for.
He is not the future of this franchise. So even if Jaden is throwing the ball in the dirt and is having a hard time, he is still QB1 to me, unless that offensive line cannot protect him. That's the only time you take him out, because there's a trial by fire that, in my opinion, is going to have to happen with him, regardless if he is catching on or he isn't catching on. And today, if you follow like David Aldridge, JP Finley, Lake Lewis, any of the beat reporters, they're all basically having the same tweet, just worded differently. Jaden's dropping dimes out here. Oh, he's looking money. Oh, he just hit Zach Ertz in the corner of the end zone. That's great. He's got no one rushing him. He's got no pressure in his face. He's got nothing happening. So I expect the kid to be able to pitch and catch. So none of this matters right now. Once we start seeing how they do in these joint practices and this and that, and I didn't even think about this. I heard someone talk about it. Most of the fights with joint practices happen on day 2. We're only practicing the Jets and the Dolphins for 1 day. So do you think they're doing that just so they don't give the guys a chance to get into fights out at those joint practices?
Well, I didn't know that stat. So if obviously we've got a new analytical guy. So if the analytical guy says, or the analytics guy, however you want to pronounce it, however you want to enunciate it, he says, hey, day 2 guys, they start to fight, and they listen to him, then hey, we're winning, dude. We're winning. One thing that I was very happy to hear is we'll see how he looks in preseason. He said that. So Joey T, I mean, we love you, but we've come to the consensus that he needs to play in preseason, and it needs to be with the ones. So he said it. So let's put that to bed. He will be playing in the preseason unless that was a Freudian slip, but I don't believe that it was, because the kid needs the reps. And we said at the last show, we're not going to harp on it, but he needs the reps, and everybody knows he does. And even in joint practice, they can't touch the quarterback. So it still gives you a false sense of security.
Oh, it definitely does. I mean, they're not supposed to touch the quarterback. So we'll see what happens. You got some guys. There was actually I didn't cut the clip up, but it was a question back to Dan Quinn about practice. And he equated practice amongst your teammates as a sparring session. Like, you're sparring, but you're not giving it 100%. And it goes back to what you have said for the past couple of years, where you're not going 100% against your brother across from you. So DQ equated it to a sparring session where it's kind of controlled chaos, if you will.
Yeah.
But then these joint practices, there are benefits of being able to do that. And this is actually some of the benefits that he said about those joint practice.
You guys have a couple of joint practices already scheduled. Looking ahead a little bit, how can those joint practices help your team as you're looking to build that identity during this training camp period?
I'll hit one part and I'll kick it over to Adam for the second part. There's a lot. One, it's good for competition. Usually, and you'd like it to be, some different systems than you currently do. So the offenses at the Jets and at Miami are different than the one is here. So that's good for extra reps, for the offense or the defense. Same thing with the Jet defense and the Miami defense are played and installed differently. So different looks, different things to go. Those are helpful. And then there's an evaluation side that goes along with that too, that I'll let Adam hit on. So it's twofold. One, new looks, new things. When you play against somebody over and over, you understand their releases, what some routes might be, and you can cheat a little bit. When you go in those other practices, you better be pure to what you're reading and how you're going to do it. And I'll let Adam refer to some of the evaluations. That's an important part of it too, because not every player plays the same amount in the preseason games.
Yeah, you get, I think, with those practices from an evaluator, one, like DQ said, you get to see our guys against a different offense or defensive scheme. How do they adapt to that? How do they play against that? And you get to see them against different players too. So sometimes you're going to be going against, their defensive tackles may not be as strong as ours, and our offensive linemen look a little better, and you feel a little better about that. It's like they're not going against Payne and Allen every time. So, and then you get a chance to see the other team. You measure yourself against the other team. You see some guys at the back of their roster you may want to trade for, you may want to pick up as on the waivers. We're number 2 on the waiver wire, so we can get a chance to do that. But really just getting a chance to compare where you're at, where they're at the same time, not overreacting either, because you can think, oh gosh, these guys are way better than us, but it could be that 10 minutes in time, that 2 hours in time, where you underestimate your team or you overestimate your team and where you're at. So you don't want to get too high, too low and where you're at. It's really a little bit of a balance, but they're invaluable. You get a chance to see guys compete without, with less of a chance of getting hurt, which is a big deal, and against a scheme that's different than yours. So it's really, really valuable.
So I'm excited to see what they can do there. And we've got joint practices going on, something that we've been harping about for quite some time. Another thing that I was really pleasantly surprised to see is Josh Harris is paying for the guys. Even though training camp is in Ashburn, he is paying for all of them to be staying at the Lansdowne Resort in Leesburg right now. And I didn't know that. I had no idea that that's what was going on. So it's like they're going, because I wanted them to go to Richmond, selfishly because I wanted ZZQ, but I more importantly wanted the guys to build that camaraderie and build that bond. You don't get a chance to do that because the past couple of years when they've been having it out in Ashburn, they just go home. They're not hanging out. They're just going home. Okay, granted, they're seeing their family and their wives and this and that. I'm sure it's probably easier on them, but you hear stories from back in the day about going out to Frostburg and the 5 o'clock club and all the guys hanging out there, sitting in the back of the trailer, just drinking beers and popping bottles and this and that. And you build that bond with your brothers. You don't get a chance to do that when you go home and you're just playing Madden or something. They're all staying at a resort together as a team, and they're building that bond as a team, which we have not done for, I don't even know how long now.
It goes back to basically what Montez Sweat said on even though they were a team, they didn't play like a team. And, you know, Montez said he was very upset, obviously, when he got traded. But then when he looks back on things, those guys, there was no 4 rushing as one or 5 rushing as one. It was, hey, you do your thing, I'm gonna do mine, and I got to get mine type of thing. And so he said that basically. So I'm paraphrasing, but we need that type of bond. You want to be able to look out for your brother, and so maybe this will help them. I'm hoping that it will.
I am too. And this is actually what Terry had to say about how it feels different.
Terry, some of us have covered this organization for an awfully long time.
Mm-hmm.
You have been through a couple of different administrations.
Yeah.
Yes, Keim, you've been here 40 years. I get it. How different is the field, not just day one here, but through veteran mini camps? Because we kind of feel like there's a different vibe.
Yeah.
We've said it before, but this is, the word's different, but for you, having experienced it, how different is it?
Definitely. I've experienced a lot in my going on 6 years here, and I could just at least speak to just this year, and I feel like the continuity from the top down is very clear what the objective is, bringing in good people who are really good at their job and are going to be competitors in what they do and bring their best selves to the building each and every day. I think that started from Mr. Harris and the ownership group, and I think that goes down to AP and DQ and our coordinators and the leaders on this team and our position coaches. So when you have that one voice, that one mission, I think it makes it very clear what the expectation is, and there's not a lot of deviation from that, because if you want to be a part of this team and this organization, you have to fit that mold or you probably won't be here. But I think the great thing about it is there's no favoritism. There's no, well, because you did this here or because you know, you had this season last year. Like, we got guys and coaches from all over the place. But one thing they have is we have a lot of guys with experience, leadership, championship pedigree, and who are competitors who want to come in and make this organization better and win together. And I think you can feel that juice. And then when you have the opportunity just to come out here and compete, that's what you love to do. You don't have to really focus on a lot of the off-field stuff we may have had, but you get to focus on football and how you get better and try to earn your spot on this team. So it's been really fun getting to know the guys. Like I said a few times, like even the first few days in the spring, we really didn't even talk a lot of football. We just got to know each other, which is new, you know what I mean? We've even mixed up the locker room where I'm sitting next to Forbes and some of the linemen, and usually you stay with your position group, but I think it helps just that continuity process a little quicker where you have those moments to spend time with guys you may not spend time with otherwise because they're not in your position room. So I could just tell we have a group of guys that are gelling well and enjoy spending time with one another, and also like to grind. And we set standards before ourselves as a team where that's what you have to hold up to if you want to be a part of this team. And I think that's great because it holds everybody accountable. Then it's on myself and it's on the other guys to hold each other accountable into that standard. As long as that doesn't deviate, then you have a good chance to have success.
They set a standard for themselves, right? Terry mentioned during his press conference that the team basically wrote up a pledge, a list of expectations and standards for everybody on and off the field, what they expect out of everybody in that locker room. That's not something that we have heard from these players or come out of Ashburn since I've been a fan and since they've been this team. I mean, it's reaffirming to hear. It's great to hear. Obviously, you know, the proof's in the pudding. We'll see if it actually happens that way. But I feel that him stepping up and holding guys accountable. We heard last year when guys goofed off at practice or something happened, Terry blew up and got on him. And it kind of reminded me of Coach Gibbs when he flipped the Gatorade table over. People paid attention because he never really lost his temper like that. I just feel that Terry is taking that next leap as the true leader of this team. And it's what we've needed. And the guys are finally bonding and becoming an actual team. What say you?
So he's being Papa Bear. I love to hear it. So the moving of the around of the locker room, that was something that the coaches implemented, or they took it upon themselves to do that. Do we know?
I thought they took it upon themselves to do that.
Okay.
That the players didn't really just want to stay with their own position groups. I do remember that in one of the first camps, Terry mentioned it, they didn't talk football. They just got to know each other. And they did tell them to sit next to someone different and sit next to a guy that you typically don't communicate with. And it makes sense. It reminds me of my wife's family. Love them to death. I don't want to say they're crazy. That's not the right way to put it. But there's a lot of them, right? And this one family reunion, man, there was close to damn near 30 of us at this family reunion. I don't know any of these people. And they set up a scavenger hunt. And the scavenger hunt, they broke up 26 of these people into the different teams on the scavenger hunt. But you weren't allowed to be on the team with your immediate family member. You got someone from this family, and then someone from this family, and from this family, and you all made that team up. And then you guys got to go on the scavenger hunt with this list. So it forced you to get to know other people in your not so immediate family. And it reminds me of that with kind of what they're doing, because, you know, it's usually the offensive lineman hanging out with the offensive lineman. The DBs hanging out with the DBs. Now it's changed up, right? It's just your brother hanging out with your brother. And as stupid and just menial as it sounds, them staying at this resort, and I wonder how many fans are going to be camping outside that resort and trying to get autographs and trying to run into guys, but knowing that they're staying at the Lansdowne Resort in Leesburg, to me, it is going to talk about investing money in your team. That is going to just come back tenfold on Josh Harris's investment just by simply getting a bunch of, granted, probably really, really nice hotel rooms out there.
They can say this is what he's done for us. I tell you what, that also reminds me of being in the military, career building. When we go to these different conferences, like you said, you normally sit with people who you know or whatever have you. And one of the instructors said, "Hey, okay, you got 10 minutes to go across the room from somebody who you don't know, and you got to come up with 3 things that you guys like or that bring you together or like-minded things." And so in those 10 minutes, I mean, you meet people and say, "Hey, I like football," or "I like the whatever have you, basket weaving," or whatever have you. And you had to come back after the 10 minutes was up and you had to say, "Well, hey, this is John, and John is from XYZ," and the whole 9 yards. So it does work. I can appreciate that. And I think back what they said about the Navy SEALs coming in and with the log drills and helping them. So all this stuff is about team building and getting to know someone. And I honestly believe the more you know about someone, the more you'll be willing to fight for them, not just because of a paycheck, but because of you created that true bond with that person, and you don't ever want to see your brother hurt. So you just one of those things that you build that bond up with each other, and so you want to go that extra step versus just saying, "Okay, yeah, he's my teammate, but yeah, I'm out to get mine," so to speak.
I mean, you mentioned it earlier. Like, Tez was about getting his and getting his sacks, even if it was to the detriment of the team. How many times have we seen Terry out there blocking his ass off, right? You see a wide receiver going out there running downfield and block and trying to spring B-Rob. It just gets the rest of the team motivated
Yeah.
and hyped up. And you're going to do that for, your brother. 2/3 of this roster is new. 2/3 of it, brand new. Ain't never been here before. So it's a lot of new faces over there for guys like Terry and John and Duran and Tress to get to know. So I am really happy, probably more than I should be, that because I was bummed that they weren't going away. And I also wanted to see my brick sitting out there that I spent way too much money on down in Richmond. But I am so happy that Josh Harris and the guys made this investment in these guys just getting to know each other. Because I've got coworkers that, they're my coworkers, but I don't spend any time with them. So, I don't go out of my way to help them. Maybe they're going to go out of their way to spring Austin for another 2 or 3 yards just because they get a chance to sit down and talk to him and, shoot the S with them in the lobby over there, something like that. And I know that's not really going to be the case, but this is just something we haven't seen in a long time. And guess what? We haven't been in a long time. Winners. And the Cowboys go to Oxnard every year, right? You hear of some of these other teams that go away, far away from home. And granted, these guys are still in Ashburn, but they are basically away from home and they don't have those creature comforts and they're being forced to spend time with each other. And whatever it takes to have a successful season, they're trying to do. And I really, really appreciate that.
Definitely. I couldn't have said it better.
So for you, what counts as a successful season? I did an interview with John Gonzalez from ABC earlier, and he asked me what my criteria for successful season is. But for you, what's your criteria for successful season?
Well, I hate to put another team on our pod, but I have to go with what Detroit has done and what Detroit has looked like. We knew that Detroit, for the longest time, just was the bottom of the barrel. And then their new coach comes in, and even though I think their first year under him, they may have won maybe 5 games, let's just say, but those 5 games just felt different than any of the other losing seasons that they had. You saw something, and I don't know as far as if it's going to transfer over into the wins and losses, but I want to be able to feel what Detroit felt when, even though they had a losing season, you could tell it wasn't the same old Lions. And that's what I want from here. I want to be able to see the changes, the difference in mindset. And I'm in this thing for the long haul. And of course, I'd like to see 10 wins, hypothetically. But if we didn't get 10 wins, the mere fact that guys after the game would say, God dang, man, those Commanders brought the pain. That's the type of thing that I want to see. And it's just the effort. If I see 100% effort, I don't like to lose, but if that makes sense, I'll be a little bit okay with it, even though you're not supposed to be okay with losing, but it's how you lose. And so bring the pain. I want to see effort. I want to see the team truly playing as one and not just doing their own thing, freelancing, and I think that the more that they come together that way, those losing games will turn into winning games. So I'm not going to say necessarily W's and L's, how many wins you get in the win column, but I'm going to say just show me that effort that has been lacking for so many years, and almost like guys just coming to get a paycheck and going home, and regardless of what happened on the field, they still got paid. And I really believe that this team or this coaching staff isn't going to let that happen. I really don't believe they're going to let that happen. So let me see the effort. And I think that the more effort that you give, it will fire into wins. What about you?
I agree with you. And I mean, Dan Campbell, when he took over for the Lions, they were 5-11 the year prior.
Mm-hmm.
That coach got fired. He took over in 2021. They took 2 steps back. They were 3-13. Right? They improved from 3-13 to 9-8, and then to 12-5. Right. So sometimes you have to take 1 step back to take 2 steps forward. And I'm not expecting us to be in the playoffs. I'm not expecting us to win the NFC East. But if we can tell that we've got the building blocks on this roster to actually make a move in year 2 and in year 3, then great. A lot of people, they disagree with me on trading for IU. Said, you got to make the move. You got to get them. And, I equate that to fantasy football mentality. All everyone cares about is a fantasy football world. And they recognize IU from that and this and that. But fantasy football ain't real. It's a fantasy, right? You actually have to have a team. And when we mentioned it on the last pod, if Brandon Coleman is that left tackle, then we no longer need to go out and hunt for a left tackle, whether it's in free agency, which you really don't get left tackles in free agency, or whether it's in a trade or whether it's in the draft. Then we're already ahead of schedule, right? Let's see how far ahead of schedule we are after this season, or how much more behind schedule we are, because 2/3 of this roster is brand spanking new. And part of this roster is on 1-year deals.
1 year. Yeah.
I don't know how many of these guys are going to stick around or what's going to happen. Bobby Wagner, he's getting up there. The guy is a freaking stud, all pro, going to be in the Hall of Fame. But realistically, he's not going to be our linebacker in 3 years from now. So what's going to happen? Let's see if Peters' magic can go there. This is actually what Peters and Quinn had to say about what counts as a successful year for them.
For you guys, what counts as a successful season this year?
I think number one, we want to start off and make sure like our identity and who we are and how we play, that has to come along strong, Ben. And that part, if you get that first and get that right, that's when a lot of the success will follow. But you can't, put the record before you have the identity and who you are. And so I'm hopeful that when you and our fans and families see us play, they see that identity coming to life, the speed, the physicality, the winning football in the most critical moments. Those are all the things that are going to make up our identity, and we've got to use this time to start establishing that in the very best of ways.
Yeah, we've both at our press conferences when we first started, right? That was the thing we both said is you're going to see how we play, you're going to feel how we play, and that's the first thing. And how fast or slow that goes is so many different things that are variables and all that. But I can tell you that you're going to see a great effort team, a competitive team playing fast and physical, and we've seen that out there all spring, and excited to see it here in camp.
I think it probably goes back also to Adam and his staff, to what it was from the players that we were trying to bring in through free agency and the draft. And so that also is a part of the identity. And so knowing that it's meshing together through scouting, through coaching, through the players, that's where the success will come.
I can't think of what this team's identity's been. During the Ron Rivera era, I can't think of a true identity for this team. Right? During the Mike Shanahan era, other than that RG3, and keep in mind, we lost a bunch of games, had to call a code red game. Basically, we're evaluating players, the season's over, to then make a run to go to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had an actual identity. Like, who the Ravens are, right? They're a freaking hard-nosed team that will punch you in the face and grind it out if need be, and they got a stud freaking badass quarterback, right? You know what the Chiefs' identity is. You know what the Steelers' identity is. We have not had an identity here in this franchise in, I don't know how long. I mean, what would you say the last time you'd say we actually had a real identity?
I mean, you hit it right on the head with RG3 in 2012. The unstoppable offense is basically what we had, if you want to say that. But it took for them collectively, like you said, to have a cold red game to bring the identity out, and it lasted for a year. But I think maybe offense, that's the only thing I can think of, and that's sad
It is sad. And I agree with what Coach and Adam had to say. If we can build that identity of the team that we want to be and be known by, then you can find players to fit that identity. And I remember last year where they talked about, we're going to be a running team, a hardcore running team. And next thing you know, fast forward, we threw the freaking most passes you could possibly throw with a red shirt quarterback. Yeah. Right. So they didn't have an identity. We could not run. Like, other than the Hogs back in the day, Coach Gibbs came here and wanted to run Air Coryell. He realized he didn't have the players to run that system. So he changed it to a running team. And I think that's probably what's pissed off a lot of people say Cliff Kingsbury the most, trying to kind of pigeonhole him in this air raid style offense. I don't think he knows and really can put a definition or description to what this team's going to be, because I don't think they know exactly yet what's going to be, because there's a lot of question marks. And
yeah, the thing is also they haven't put pads on yet. They don't really know what they have, and until they actually go up against somebody, even if it's themselves, they don't know. They know what they want to do or what they would like to do, but as far as actually putting it in motion right now, they don't know. And like you said, Joe Gibbs, he wanted to run A, but realized that A wasn't cutting the mustard, so he switched up to B, and that's what a good coach does. And I believe that that's what we have here with us right now. Good coaches that are going to realize that if it's not working, being able to adjust on the fly and changing it.
That's what I'm hoping to see, just good coaching. This is actually what Jon Allen had to say about some of the differences with this coaching staff.
Now, what are some of the differences with this system that maybe can free you up to do some different things?
Man, I really think it's just about the little details. We're really focusing on the small stuff to get off the first step, the first 6-inch step, your hands and your pad level, and just really repetition. So it's nothing groundbreaking that we're doing. It's just consistency and a mindset that we're playing with.
And how can that, at this stage of your career too, how can that focus help you?
Man, I think it can help me a lot. When you look at the 49ers and what they were able to do with their defensive line, we're coaching a lot of the same things. So, I'm really excited for what we can do, and just excited to be out here.
So he said something that, to me, shouldn't even be talked about, which is pad level. You're in the pros. You know how low you need to be. You understand that. I mean, that's something that you talk about in Pop Warner all the way to high school, college, and now on the ultimate level, professional. You know that how low your pads need to be. But if they're still talking about that, then obviously there's a disconnect, some shape, form, or fashion. So I'm surprised that he said pad level, but hey, I guess even though you're pro, you don't know the bad habits that the guys may have had with another coach or another scheme, if you will. So this is truly going back to day one of school. Pad level? Wow. I would think that's just something that you already know. The lowest man wins, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about leverage. It reminds me of when Marty Schottenheimer came in that one year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was trying to tell Darrell Green how to play defensive back. Right? It's like, I'm sorry, Marty, you're trying to tell Darrell Green, and at this point, Darrell not in the Hall of Fame yet, but he's still an All-Pro, still the fastest freaking man in the NFL. And you're trying to tell him how to play DB? He'd won 3 Super Bowls at that point.
Yeah.
And you're trying to tell him how to play a defensive back? Like, there's some stuff that, these guys are just taught from coaches that just don't make sense. And I'm sorry, I wasn't there. I don't know what Marty was trying to tell Darrell, but apparently Darrell didn't appreciate it, didn't like it. So I just have a feeling that some of these players have developed bad habits from the prior staff, the prior schemes that they've been in, that are now you have to reverse, and you've got to tell them the proper way. Telling them this is what we did in San Francisco. That defensive line in San Francisco with Bosa and the guys over there, this is how they do it and how successful they are. Like, then you get the buy-in. If you bring in if you can't beat them, join them or hire them? Well, we haven't been able to beat some of these teams, so we grab their coaches, right? And now we finally have coaches that can actually teach proper technique. And I've got someone that always likes to tell me that common sense isn't common, right? Just because you think it should be this way and you would think that your brother beside you would think that way, that might not be how they were taught this entire time. And then you've got to relearn some of those things that for you were common sense, but for them, it just wasn't. And I think that's really where we truly are right now. And I'm excited because it's a new coaching staff that is all super experienced and they have all done it before. And we've harped on it in the past with a high school coach trying to coach Emmanuel Forbes. But what can this staff do with Emmanuel? What can they do with Jamin? What can they do with Cornelius Lucas to turn him from a swing tackle into that regular starting tackle that we so desperately need? And I'm excited to see if it's going to work or if we're going to have to somewhat take 2 steps back and then have to bring someone else in to handle it. But day one, and I'm also appreciative of Coach having press conferences and camp practice done by 10:30 so I could cut this stuff up for the show and we can get this out. But it's refreshing, man. And it's exciting to see. And I'm just bummed I wasn't out there to watch it in person. I am jealous you're going to be out there this Sunday with our brothers and sisters. Tell everyone I miss them. Definitely take some pictures for me while you're out there.
Oh, heck yeah.
But another thing I was excited to see, but also a little bummed. Did you see the NFL Top 100? They're coming out with that list right now. So they've released.
No, I haven't seen it.
They've released 71 to 100 right now. The top 10 is coming out on August 2nd. So they're making it come out every couple of days, 10 players. So
anything to continue to string us along.
Oh yeah, man.
Dangle that carrot. Dangle that.
At least it's free, right? It's like I'm not subscribing to Peacock to watch Taekwondo, but at least the NFL Network's not charging me money to see this stupid list. But there has been one commander on the list so far. Who would you think it is?
In the top 100?
So in the top 100, so between 71 and 100, one name has been released that it was a commander. If you had to guess, well, you're guessing, who do you think it'd be?
Well, probably one of the 2 gentlemen that spoke earlier. So either Jonathan Allen or Terry. And I realized that the NFL kind of isn't necessarily 100% on defense. It has to be offense. So I guess I'll have to go with Terry.
So Terry was 97 on that list.
97. Wow.
Yeah. And I was shocked to see that he was 97. Well, I'm happy he's on the list, number one, but shocked to see that he was 97. And this was from PFF Fantasy. Terry McLaurin on contested targets since 2019. He has 79 contested catches, which is first in the NFL. And he's got a PFF grade of 94, which is second since 2019. So they made him number 97. And granted, like DK Metcalf, other guys, some bigger beast receivers, they're up higher than him. So I'm glad to see that we've got some representation because we didn't have a single Pro Bowl player last year on there. There was actually another kind of commander on the list. I don't know if it counts, but Montez Sweat was 82. So I think we should take partial credit for Montez being on the list because he did get a bunch of those sacks when he was with us.
Yeah.
So, maybe we got 1.5 guys on the list, but
stretching it, but okay.
Gotta pull something positive out of this, man.
You're stretching it, bro.
Do you think we're gonna have any other Commanders players on that top 100?
I think Jonathan Allen. I mean, that's just off the rip. That's just who I feel. I don't think anyone else realistically has had. I mean, maybe Payne. I mean, and those are just the big names that we've had and the consistent names. So those two probably will be there somewhere. Maybe one of those two.
Yeah, I could see maybe Duran being on there. I feel that Duran had a better year than John did last year,
Yeah.
but I don't. The only person I could think of, just looking at the roster, and I don't think it's fair either, but would be Bobby Wagner. Just because Bobby has been a badass, and I think he led the league in tackles last year, and it's cheating because he wasn't a Commander last year.
Yeah.
But he's on our team. So, I mean, technically we would have a top 100 player that is a Commander that's on the list. But other than that, I mean, it was bad, man. We had a bad roster last year.
Yeah. And so I can't even count Bobby Wagner, even though I love that he's on our squad. That's a Seattle thing. So that goes to Seattle, even though he is on our squad now. That was last year. This isn't obviously these grades are they talking about from this year? They're talking about from last year.
So it's voted on by the players. So it's NFL Top 100 voted on by the players from their performance last year.
Yeah,
but they're on our team this year. So for me,
but
he's on my team.
It's Seattle. Hey, start your legacy here in 2024 with the Commanders. That's what we're looking for. So in 2025, when they reach back and they say, he was here, that's what I'll take. I definitely will take.
I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one. But someone, speaking of legacy, who would be on that top 100 list 1,000 times out of 1,000 is Darrell Green. The team did what was right, and they announced a week ago that they're going to retire DG's number at the game versus the Panthers. They didn't announce it 5 days before the game like they did with Sean Taylor. They announced it well in advance.
Learning.
Yeah. I mean, it's that they're definitely learning, and it's just great to see them honor Darrell. Troy Dodd, one of our listeners and friends, he actually gave his favorite Darrell memory. He said it had to be the punt return for a touchdown against the Bears in the playoffs. It led the way to Super Bowl 22. What a great memory with my dad to see this live.
Wow. Love it.
I'm jealous that Troy got to see that with his pops live. What's your favorite Darrell memory?
My favorite Darrell memory, I've got, I think, two. One is on the field and the other is off the field. I think the one on the field is when he broke up the pass against the Vikings to be able to make it into the playoffs to eventually win the Super Bowl. The other one is when he got crowned NFL's fastest man when he beat Willie Gault. So those are my two.
So for me, and I don't want to think it's recency bias, but it had to be taking a selfie with Darrell in Detroit when he was up there for the draft. I mean, he came off the stage, took a selfie with all of us in the inner circle. I've gotten to meet him a bunch, talk to him. I remember being there at, FedEx for his last game where he literally ran around the entire bowl and high-fived all the fans there and having a tear in my eye knowing that was going to be the last time we ever saw him. And then being in Canton when he and Art got inducted into the hall. But if I had to choose one memory, it would just being there in Detroit for the draft in the inner circle. It's something I'm never going to forget, being there with you, being there with Darrell, the rest of the other quote unquote super fans there. That was just a surreal, priceless moment for me and just awesome. But it's great to see that they're actually honoring these guys and doing it. And, while Darrell's still here, right? Yeah. And, they honored Sean. Granted, I think they honored Sean way too early. There are a lot of other numbers that should have been retired way before Sean's did. But there's a story behind that I'll talk about one day off mic. Who do you think we should retire number-wise next?
Probably Art Monk.
You think Art?
Yeah, because Quiet Art. Yep. Art doesn't say much. He doesn't brag, he doesn't boast, but he left it on the field and this showed. So yeah, I'd say Quiet Art Monk.
I was thinking about Art. I was thinking about, Joe Jacoby, but for me, it's got to be John Riggins. He is
Riggo.
just such a, if you had a Mount Rushmore of Washington players, Riggo's up there. His
Oh, yeah.
relationship with his team has been repaired. I mean, I know you were there when he was at FedEx last year and they honored him on the Jumbotron, and he opened up his jacket and showed the old Redskins logo there, and the whole crowd went wild. I mean, to me, I would like to see 44 get retired next. And then every time we get in the red zone or something, you know how Tampa Bay, they shoot off a cannon, we fire off a diesel horn or something
Yeah.
like that, man.
Crank
That's
up
what
that
I wanna see.
diesel. Oh boy, I hear the music playing in the background. It's been an hour already, man. Okay, that lets me know that we're bringing this show to a close, and we thank you guys for riding with us. We really do. If you haven't done so, and we say it all the time, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. It goes a long way. And one thing I am glad before we get off of here, I'm glad that they did announce Darrell Green's jersey retirement when they did, because there are a lot of people asking me, inboxing me, and I'm sure you too, saying, hey, when is it going to happen? Because I want to make it in town. I got a lot of people from overseas saying they want to come. So now you guys know, and hopefully you jumped on it and got your plane tickets, and you can get your game tickets as well, and hotel accommodations. So, hey man, it's been a pleasure riding with you again for this week, Ted. And if you guys are still interested in going to games, hey, check out sbevents.net, www.sbevents.net. Check it out. Easy payment plans, and we're right around the corner from going to these games. So that's going to do it for this week. Rally Captain, Tailgate Ted, rep it hard, or you don't rep it at all. We're out.